Well, Mrs. Bree, first of all, I need to ask you your full name.
Eleanor Bree.
Well, I think today we're really going to talk mostly about your job as a nurse in Walton Neuro. That's as it was, the Centre for Neurology and Neurosurgery. It's known as Walton Centre now.
Well, my brother had married a nurse and she was doing health visiting, but she was from down south, Betty. And I just didn't give it a thought, nursing. And I'd worked, my first job when I come home was working the Pioneer Laundry, which used to be here, where those flats are for the elderly.
Just around the corner from where you live.
Yeah. And I worked there, and after they had machinists where you have to machine the labels to put on the clothes, you know. And I'd never used this machine in my life, one of those pebble ones, you know, and I've no coordination between my feet and my hands. And I had to get the engineer every day to see it, and thought, well, I'll take her off this because you threw the machines. So they put me on the, I don't know what they call it, the great big long roller, huge thing. And what they used to do, put the wet sheets in and it'd go through and it'd dry them and iron them at the same time. And I came out with sort of rashes all here. So Auntie...
On your wrists?
Yeah, in there. And she took me to the doctors. I'm just trying to think now. The National Health came in the middle of 48. Yeah. And this would be 47. And took me to the doctor, Dr. Kelly on Crosby Road he was. And he said, where are you working? So I told him where I was working. He said, that's far too heavy for you. He said, you'll have to get another job. So I left. And went to Waterworks. Don't know whether you ever remember Waterworks. William Ross's and Waterworks were greengrocers. And along, you know, like you get little Tesco's now. They were known all round.
Along the main road here. Yeah.
So it was Waterworks on Crosby Road, nearly opposite St. Faith's Church. And I worked there, and then I thought I couldn't have been only there a few months really. And then we got moved to St. John's Road, to Waterworks and St. John's Road. And the manageress there was a sister of the one who was the manageress on Crosby Road. And she was horrible. She used to swear. And it was different. It's no pre-packed things, you know. They had the potato bins. And you had to get the potatoes out the bins and weigh them and all the rest of it, you know. So there was a girl working there with me. She lived in the, what did they call it? The colonies, I think they called it. Denmark, Norway and Sweden Street. And she's a very quiet girl. Very nice, very quiet. And she said, I'm not staying here any longer. She said, I hate this carry on of her, you know. We don't have to put up with this. So we both left. And then I went to, you wouldn't know this if you didn't live here then, John Estove in South Road. It was a stationer's and he had a library. It was family business. And I went down there myself and to see if they'd got any jobs. I mean, there was jobs available in those days. But they don't get the help that they get like today. You just got to go and get them yourself. And I went, and it was old Daddy Dove with the Victorian flag collar, you know. And he said, well, I'll let you know, kind of thing. Well, we'll have a think about it, because they lived on the premises. And the next day I went down to a place in Richmond Street, I think it's called Richmond Street in Liverpool, off Whitechapel. Yeah. And there was a stationer's there, Two Tools or something. Well, I went in there. And I thought, I wasn't very interested.
That shop was there until very recently.
Yeah. I went in there and I thought, no, I'm not going there. And when I come back home, Auntie said to me, Mr. Dove's been here. I said, what for? So she said, well, he wanted to talk to you. This was Daddy Dove, you know, the old fella that interviewed me. So I said, he said, I should have told him you'd gone looking for a job in Liverpool. And he turned around and he said, I do hope she doesn't get it. I won't. So I went down to the shop and he gave me the job and I absolutely loved it. I did. It was totally different. They had a library at the back of the shop. And
so what were you doing?
the assistants in the shop, you know. Mm-hmm. But in those days, biros had just come out. And when they wanted a refill, they used to bring the pen in and you had to undo it and do it for them, you know, and all this palaver. And fountain pens with the nibs, they used to come in for the nibs, you know, the gold nibs and that. But I just loved it. And then my sister-in-law, Betty, she said, well, really, you wasted there. She said, why don't you do nursing? Well, I hadn't given it a thought. I said, well, I've never done anything like. She said, you'd make a good nurse, you know. So I wrote, I don't know why I wrote to Walton Hospital, I've no idea, because I wasn't used to any hospitals. And it was Matron Thomas, and when I went to it, I must have been about 17 then. And she said, we couldn't employ you. She said, you're far too young, you've got to be 18 to start anyway. So I said, oh. And Daddy Mac was the superintendent. We called him Daddy Mac. He was a Scottish doctor. But he was in charge of the hospital and the matron was in charge of the other side. And 3 times I wrote to her and said to her, I said, no, I think I'd quite like to do nurse. Didn't know anything about it. And it was they had their own nursing school. They had their own teachers, tutors, everything. And the consultants used to come in and give us lectures. And absolutely loved it. And you were in the school full time for 3 months. And then you went on to a ward. You were put on a ward. And I was put on N ward, which didn't mean a thing to me. And it was the day I hadn't been on the ward very long. And in those days, if you took a patient to theatre, on Euro anyway, I don't know about the other wards, the nurse that took her to theatre stayed in theatre with the patient till the operation was done and brought them back to the ward with the porter. So you had to take notes down. Yeah.
Can we just be clear? You were straight away put on to what was the neurological ward, were you?
Yes, but it was new then, you see. I didn't know that. And it was Sutcliffe Care. It was in charge of it.
It's Andrew Sutcliffe Care.
Yeah. And there was the biggest ward was the male ward. It's had about 30 beds in it, 15 either side, big long ward. And then there was a female ward with about 14 beds in. And then there was a smaller female ward with 6 beds in. And then there was, it was on the doctor's landing as well. There was a small nursery with a couple of cots in and 3 separate rooms for individual patients.
And what sort of things were you... what were the doctors treating? What were you helping with?
There was all kinds of things which you learn as you go along, kind of thing, you know. Subarachnoid hemorrhages, slip discs. And this is where I met me husband to be, but it wasn't anything to do with me. It was with another patient. He was put in a bed. He was from Birkenhead. And wasn't able to work for over 12 months because he had this. He couldn't hardly walk with his. He had to go upstairs on his backside, sit on his bottom to try and get up. And seemingly his doctor, his GP in Birkenhead, had TB. And in those days, he used to take himself off to Switzerland or somewhere cold like that for the winter, thinking it would do him good.
For fresh air.
And he'd come back, and Bill hadn't been working for a long time, nearly 9 months, 12 months. And he said had his name down to go and have his operation or seen to at Birkenhead General. And when he come back, he was horrified, the doctor, and he said, you haven't been seen? So he said, no. Oh, he said, well, if you're prepared to go over to Liverpool, he said, I know a very good surgeon, and that was Sutcliffe Care. He lived in Prenton, you see. And so he came over, and he was put into this bed next to Joe Fox. I'll never forget him. He was a miner from St Helens, and something on the mine had collapsed on his back and broke his back in 2. You've never seen anything like it, and I've never seen anything like it since. And he used to get depressed, which you would imagine he would do. And then I took Bill to the theatre, took his notes down and everything, and brought him back. And then he went home. But in those days, they used to do a lot of after care. You know, he'd go to the clinic about 3 or 4 times, you see, to make sure everything was working all right. And when he used to come over from Birkenhead, he used to go and see Joe Fox, because everybody felt sorry for him, you know. And in those days, when you were a student nurse, you had 2 hours off during the day. It was either 10 till 12 in the morning, 2 till 4 in the afternoon, or what we all wanted was the 6 o'clock, which meant you were finished for the day. And he used to go and see, if I was on, say, a 10-2 or a 2-2 and I wasn't, because you had to live in, you see, I'd go up and see Joe because I felt sorry for him. And she was lovely, the sister on there, Kathy McCartney, I can't think her name was. Very attractive. All the doctors loved her. And young. And I'd say, is it all right to go and see Joe? Oh, yes, please. She said, see if you can put a smile on his face, you know, that kind of thing. And of course, the next few times Bill went to see him, he said, wouldn't you like to go out with Ken? Because in those days you were called by your surname. Mine was Kennedy, you see. Well, they used to call me Kellogg's and Ken and everything. And he said, oh, I don't know anything about her. Oh, he said, she's lovely. He said, she comes up to see me when I had 2 hours off to cheer me up. So he made arrangements. Because Joe wouldn't have my address and there was no phones. He didn't have no phones or nothing. Anyway, the long and the short of it was, I met him outside Central Station in town. And he was waiting to go on convalescence to Colwyn Bay. He was in the penny and the pound. And so went off from there.
And the rest is history,
yeah,
as they say.
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about living in when you were a student nurse living in. What was that like?
Well, at the old home, you lived in the old home till you passed your prelim. You sat your prelim after 12 months. And if you passed it, you got moved into the new home, which was a modern with a flat roof. You could sunbathe on the flat roof. And that was facing Rice Lane on the top. Yeah. The old home, you could see, was an old building. But you had your own room. Yes, you had your own room, like, you know, just a bed and chest of drawers and wardrobe, and that was it.
And what sort of things were you learning? What did you have to learn during that time?
Well,
because this was a specialist unit that you were working with.
Yes, but you picked that up on the ward. When you went for your lectures, it was general nursing. And I've had people ask me, what was his name over in Gayton? Nicholas Clitheroe. Well, I didn't know him, but he came when I went back after 20 years, an absence of 20 years.
After you'd had your children?
Yes. And somebody had given him my phone number and he phoned me. He said, it's all right. He said, I'm writing a book about Walden Hospital and I've been told you'd write. I said, yes, I had. So he came over a few times, you know. He's a very nice chap.
So you're used to being interviewed.
Oh.
But let's go back to those early days again.
Yeah.
I'm a bit intrigued because Walton Hospital, where it was at that time, and because the centre is now in Fazakerley, but Walton Hospital used to be, it was a workhouse, wasn't it? A poorhouse, yes.
And it was still workhouse, Botany.
So what were the wards like?
Well, the wards were big wards, you know, it was old, but don't forget the war had been on, and Y ward was turned into where you got your ration books. And there was also maternity in those days. There was 3 huts for maternity. And we used to call it the mat, and it was a big separate building where people that had problems with their pregnancy, so they'd have to have cesareans, they were in there, you know. And I had my eldest in there. I didn't want to. I wanted to go to Oxford Street, but I'd left it too late to get in, you know. So I went there and I thought, I'm definitely not going.
I've heard people talking about some of the older hospitals in Liverpool, and a lot of them, they would have fireplaces in them and that sort of thing.
Oh, yes, there were coal fires in the ward.
Just describe it for me. What was it like?
Yes, well, I remember D ward had 4 rows of beds, one there, and 2 down the middle. And I remember when the flu epidemic was on, they had coal fires, and there was other bed put either side of the fireplace.
And did you have to look after the fires as a nurse?
I don't remember looking after the fires. Perhaps, I don't know whether the porters did it.
Probably.
There was no auxiliaries in those days. There was, I don't know what they call them. They didn't have they had some kind of uniform on. I just loved it. Yeah. And I remember what I do remember. Christmas, you weren't allowed to be off at Christmas. Everybody had to be in Christmas Day. But I loved it because Christmas Eve we used to go around with our capes and the lantern, you know, and sing around the wards, your own wards mainly, carols and that. And then the next day in the morning, the consultants had all come in with their families and their children. And that was lovely seeing them. And they'd bring us a box of chocolates and a box of biscuits and things like that. It was lovely. We had a dining room. You had to go to the dining room. The food was very good. It was cooked fresh. You know, it was very good. And I just liked everything about it, you know.
We mentioned Andrew Sutcliffe Kerr before, and he was the man who really developed that unit, I understand. He was a bit of a character, I think.
Well, he was funny because he did Bill's operation, and Sammy Lipton, who was Jewish, he did the anaesthetic. And what you had to do is you had to write down, although his name was on the front, when I think about it now, it was crackers. On the back of the notes, on the back of the folder, I'd put down what the operation, the surgeon would start the operation. He'd say, right, is the ward nurse ready? Right. And he'd put his name down and who was assisting with the operation, who the anaesthetist was and what anaesthetics they were using. And then he'd say what kind of incision he'd do and what he was doing and all the rest of it. But the funny thing was the first time I took a patient to theatre, the porter that was pushing the trolley, he said to me, they could tell the new one by the uniform, you see. Yeah. And he said to me, aren't you just out the PTS? I said, yes. He said, and you're on N ward? I said, yes, that didn't mean a thing to me then.
That meant neuro, did it?
Yeah. He said, no, well, all the wards had, like next door was W ward. Yeah. And he said, they don't put anybody out the PTS on N ward. Well, I said, they put me on and I like it. And that was it. You know, I just fell in love with it. It was very, very interesting.
How long were you there before you left to have your family?
I left. I needed to save up to get some money to get married. Because the first year we were on £5 a month. Second year, £6 a month. Third year, £7 a month. But don't forget, out of the other money, whatever it should have been, you got paid in an envelope. You had to go and queue in the lounge and get your envelope at the end of the month. They did your uniform. You know, they laundered your uniform. You had to buy your own shoes and black stockings. But they did all the uniform, and you had to find the money for books. You know, they didn't issue any books for you. You had to go to the shops and get the books with everything in. But I just loved it. Mm-hmm. But the sisters, I mean, there was good ones and bad ones, you know.
What about matrons?
Oh, well, Matron Thomas, she was Welsh. But when I applied to go, she said, we can't have you because you're not old enough. And I applied 3 times, and in the end, she said, well, I'm never going to get rid of this one. So she let me go. So I started in the February, but I wasn't going to be 18 till the end of June, you see. But the hardship from that was you had to be 21 to do your finals. Mm. And my finals would have been in March. And I wasn't 21 till the end of June, so I couldn't sit with the others. Bootle Hospital and Bootle Hospital came under the umbrella of Walton Hospital. That was like the senior one, and they told them what's what. And like Balliol Road, there was a nursing home for maternity there. That was under it as well. What happened when this... not the Walton Centre, but there was a separate, it was part of the old hospital, N ward. And then they built their own building, which was just neuro only, and the corridor used to go from there through to the main hospital. And it was in the Crosby Herald thing, and I said, well, I'd love to go and have a look at that. And what happened, I was in Waterloo Hospital in March of 72. Watching the nurses, I thought, I'd quite like to go back to nursing, you know. My youngest was 9 then, I think. I wrote to the matron when this new building, I didn't know her, like Veronica, can't remember her other name, but she lived round the corner, Beesale, lived with her mother. And I wrote and I said, should I come and have a look? I used to work in Euro, I'd love to have a look at it. Yes, I went and had a look around. I said, oh, this is nice. Everything Euro was on that block, you know, their own physio, everything. I went back because I didn't finish my exam. I wasn't able to finish my exam. So I thought, it's no use doing that because my husband worked away a lot. I've got to be here in case the kids are sick. Somebody's got to be here during the day. So I applied to go do 2 nights a week as an auxiliary which I did do. And I hadn't been doing that very long. I started in the August, I think, 72. And the sisters around and I said, you're wasted here, you know. Why don't you carry on and write to the General Nursing Council and do the rest of your exam, carry on with your course? So I said, I can't. I said, it means, because there were terrible hours, you had to be there. You had to be on the ward for 7:30 to take the night report, off the night report. And then you could be working till they come on at night time, you know. And I said, I can't do that with family, you know, it's no good at all. So I said, I'll write to the General Nursing Council. They said, well, see if you can get your SEN, you know. So I wrote to the General Nursing Council because I still had my index number. And they wrote back, they look it all up, you see. And this is in London. And they said, in view of the training you've done in the past, you don't really need to do any more. You could just sit the SEN's exam, you see. They still had the school in the hospital, you know, that we'd gone to when we were students. And I said to the tutors there that give us the lectures, I said, can I come and sit in on some of the lectures? Oh, yes, fine, you know. So when I got the chance, I'd go and listen to what was going on. And when I got my results back for me, they used to paper that you'd done it on, they used to send it back to you. I'd got 73%, and I thought, oh my God, that's good after an absence of 20 years. So the people that I was working with on nights, I still only did 2 nights, like, you know, they said, yeah, we told you.